Alright, welcome back, you flaming biatches. So, we just came back from playing the Alpha Weekend 3 for Smite 2. And what they added for the third Alpha Weekend, they added Hecate, which is this chick with okay freaking boobs, I guess. You know, I've been having this issue because you can just tell that high-res, they're really scared to make absolutely sexy women. Hecate is like barely attractive, but let's just face it, her boobs and herself, she's not really sexualized at all or that much. Yeah, by the way, it really does feel like some of the newer heroes that they're making, and also some of the directions they're taking with Smite 2, it's pretty clear that they're taking a lot of notes from League of Legends, making a lot of their future decisions with this game. Regardless though, they added Hecate. She's kind of interesting. She's kind of like a support mage, which again is very League of Legends like. There's not a lot of like dedicated support mages in Smite, the base game itself. So, well, the base game itself, Smite 1, right? But it's kind of a base game, I guess. She's alright, she's kind of fun, she does a lot of damage, she's a little bit gimmicky, so that's a little bit frustrating when you're using her, but she's an interesting character to play as, a character to use, and I do appreciate everything that they did to make her character. Outside of that, they brought in Thanatos, and they also brought in the Morrigan, and by the way, this is one of the things that I've had a huge issue with Smite 1 is that the game is very janky, very clunky. When you use certain, and I noticed this ever since playing Smite 2, I noticed the fact that whenever you use abilities, the frame rate will just drop at random times on certain abilities like the Fenrir Leap, as I previously stated in the Alpha Weekend 2 Thoughts and Impressions video. You will interestingly notice that a lot of the abilities in Smite 2 are a lot more fluid and smooth. They're not as clunky. They're not as disorderly when you use them. One of the issues with Smite 1 is that when you use Morrigan's ultimate, the game will just have a massive frame rate drop for you as the player because it's changing states for you, your character, and you're changing into another enemy or an allied god on the field. So one of the issues that happens is that the game will just clunkily transform you from Morrigan. I don't know if it's any better on PC, but all I know is that on console, it's freaking awful. And that's all I've ever known is how awful it is on console. But on Smite 2, it's pretty fluid, bro. Now, there is that delay where she's transforming, so that can feel weird in the middle of combat. But for the large part, the ability feels largely good. I don't really like the way that you fire it off. It can be a little bit clunky, just the way that you have to use it. But the frame rate, nothing happens. It's completely smooth. The game is so fluid and smooth to play. I love it. And that's one of the things I really love about Smite 2. Thanatos, they didn't really change a whole lot about him, by the way, and they didn't really change a whole lot about the Morrigan either. Her passive on her basic attacks, that can now crit, which is kind of interesting. I remember it saying that it can crit, so that's kind of interesting. And they didn't really make a whole lot of changes to her, but she feels really good, actually, when you're playing in Smite 2. And I really like her. Like, I don't like her that much in Smite 1, but when I was playing her in Smite 2, I was legit enjoying it. Now, she's still kind of weird to play, and something I was realizing is that Thanatos low-key kind of counters her. But yeah, there's things about her kit that I still don't like too much about the character itself. It just makes it kind of difficult to fluidly play with her. If you're fighting against a character like Zeus, I think Zeus is always going to win against the Morrigan, if I'm being real. But Morrigan is still cool, and I do like her more in Smite 2 than in Smite 1. So good job on that, mother effing high-res, you freaking wokies. And again, we have Hecate, she's pretty good. We have Thanatos, he feels good. I mean, all the characters feel good in this. I don't know if there's really any new items. They added Blink, and they changed the way that it works, so it has a longer no, I think the cooldown is the same as it's ever been, although the new thing about Blink is that you can now use it in place of beads, and you don't have to escape combat for 2 seconds in order to use Blink, so you can be getting attacked in real time by like a Hades ultimate or anything that doesn't stun you, freeze you, whatever, and you can literally just teleport away. that is really cool, and it's a cool idea of a replacement for beads, and I really like that. Now, I don't know how other people, how do they read into it? Do they think it's a bad thing, a good thing? I mean, it does make it kind of frustrating because you might be securing a kill and then suddenly your target just teleports away and you're like, oh, come on, man. It's kind of frustrating in that way, but again, it replaces beads. And I'll just be honest, I think it's a cool idea. I like it personally, but maybe down the road, it'll be a terrible game design decision. Right now, I don't see any issues with it. Outside of that, I'm still a little bit geriatric about Neith and her boob size, okay? I don't think Neith's breasts are the proper size that they were in Smite 1, and I'm freaking pissed off about that. And again, they need to go out of their way to just crazily sexualize the women in this game, make new female characters that are completely sexualized. Love of God. Freaking high-res, what the frick is wrong with you? Why do you not like beautiful women anymore? What the frick happened to you, and who touched you? Was it Epstein? Was it? Please tell me, high-res. But anyways, man, there's not a whole lot more to say about the Alpha Weekend 3. It was good. They added some decent characters to the game, and I'm just hoping, and by the way, they are touching up the game with every single Alpha Weekend, so which is happening pretty much every month. So they're adding some nice little changes, some nice little facelifts to the game. So by the time the game probably enters beta, it's probably going to look really solid, you know, for the most part. I'm going to guess that they're going to continuously add more things to the map and just make it feel more alive and lively. One of the things though that I'm hoping they do, they need to add other game modes to Smite. And what I'm talking about, and they've flirted with this idea, but they said back then that the Unreal Engine 3, I believe is what it was, or 4, whichever one they were using, that apparently they weren't able to make a 10 versus 10 player map. Now, please, for the love of God, we need a freaking 10 versus 10 player game mode. That would be so freaking cool. Freaking Battlefield can do this trash where you have, what, 64 players on one side, 64 on the other side. What are we doing, bro? This is Smite, right? Battleground of the freaking feminist gods. Bologna, I'm looking at you, you freaking whore. If they would add a new game mode, I mean, please get creative and make other game modes that are actually genuinely cool. But again, I really would love it if they made a really dynamic, awesome, cool 10 versus 10 player map. And what I would love is even to have like a game mode. Like for instance, like think of For Honor, for instance, they have that one Siege game mode, which I love. I love Siege, or whatever it's called, in For Honor. I would love it to have a Siege game mode in Smite. Again, make it legitimate, but it's like you're on a battlefield and you're trying to attack the enemy team. Let's say you're trying to conquer certain objectives on the map, and then those objectives are utilized in helping you take over the defensive location on the map. That would be cool. They could absolutely make that work. You could have a pretty good match centered around that. Make there be things that everybody can do. It would be cool if it also has kind of like a jungle that gets certain defensive buffs for the defenders. That would be really cool. And maybe some of these like kind of like air quotes jungle buffs, maybe they're kind of like roaming buffs rather than these stationary buffs, and maybe it's like patrolling units on the attacker side, and if you attack these guys, right, maybe it makes catapults fire slower, and again, it's also giving you gold and XP, so it's kind of like this interactive jungle. That would be freaking cool. That would be awesome. I would love a game mode like that. Imagine, and again, imagine that instead of a flat terrain, right, you have hills and maybe you even have valleys. But and there's a way with Smite and its aiming system that you can still have verticality, because you can just still have the direction that the character that you're playing as, whoever it is, the direction they're facing, they still attack in that direction, but you're walking up and down hills. I mean, they could still make it flat, but all I'm saying is I think they can figure out a way to give the game a little bit of verticality while the basic attacks and the spells, they still work normally. And all you have to do is just make the spells track with the curvature of the ground, but still apply the same effects as if it's flat ground, right? It's just at an angle. It can still work roughly well. But again, they don't have to make it dynamic terrain, but I think they could do that. I don't think it's hard. They already have the base root of the game made. You wouldn't have to do much to make that new game mode, but whatever. Let's just say, let's not do dynamic terrain, and let's just do flat terrain. Fine. At the very least, just give us a siege game mode, a legitimate siege game mode. I know that there's an actual siege game mode in Smite 1. No, I'm talking about an actual siege, attackers and defenders. And outside of that game mode, because that would just be super cool, I would love it. And again, the application is not that hard. It's just, do you have the idea, high res? Well, I just gave you the freaking idea. Love of God, it's not that hard to freaking think of the rest of it, but whatever. Outside of that, I would love to have, though, a conquest mode that is 10 versus 10, and maybe a little bit more of a facelifted map. Like a lot more going on, a lot more objectives. That would be freaking cool. Seriously, it would be so awesome though. Think about it, bro. Freaking 10 versus 10. And again, they were thinking of doing that in Smite 1. They were just held back by their engine. Well, now you have Smite 2. Now you have the Unreal Engine 5. So what the frick are we waiting for, bro? Let's have a 10 versus 10 freaking game mode. And if they do it, I'll be freaking happy. But anyways, those are my thoughts on Alpha Weekend 3. And bro, please, for the love of God, can we get a 10 versus 10 game mode?